Welcome back to my channel. I'm glad you're here. Join me today in exploring the story of William Joyce, aka Lord Haw-Haw. Let's begin. At 9 a.m. on the 3rd of January, 1946, a man was led into the execution chamber at Wandsworth Prison. His name was William Joyce. He had never carried a weapon on the battlefield. He had never commanded troops. He had never personally taken a life. His crime was his voice. His routes of appeal now exhausted, Joyce went to his death, unrepentant, as he defiantly yelled out, "In death as in life, I defy the Jews who caused this last war, and I defy the powers of darkness which they represent." Joyce was hanged for high treason, the last person in British history to receive such a sentence. Today he is better remembered by the name millions once knew him by, Lord Haw-Haw. William Joyce was born in Brooklyn, New York, 24 April 1906, to Irish parents who had become naturalized American citizens 8 years earlier. 3 years later, the family returned to Ireland, settling in Galway. They were Irish Catholics, but unusually, they were also staunch loyalists to the British Crown. In the newly radicalized Republican South, this made them targets. Their home and business were attacked by nationalist groups, and the family lived under constant pressure. Joyce was educated at St. Ignatius College, where he proved intelligent, confrontational, and combative. During a fight at school, his nose was broken and never reset, resulting in the nasal tone that would later become familiar to millions of radio listeners. In 1921, following the Anglo-Irish Treaty and the creation of the Irish Free State, the Joyce family moved to England, fearing retaliation. Joyce was 15 years old. After a brief underage stint in the army and studies at Surrey Polytechnic, Joyce enrolled at Birkbeck College, University of London. He graduated in 1927 with a first-class degree and married Hazel Barr on 30 April of the same year, with whom he had 2 children. While studying, Joyce developed a deep interest in fascist politics, joining British Fascisti Limited in 1923. He became known on campus for his aggressive debating style and his open anti-Semitism, frequently clashing with political opponents. Violence was not uncommon. In 1924, he was slashed across the face with a razor during a confrontation at a political meeting, a notorious scar he would carry for the rest of his life. Joyce later claimed his attacker was a Jewish communist, a belief that hardened views he already had. In 1932, when Oswald Mosley founded the British Union of Fascists, Joyce joined immediately, abandoning academia to become a full-time political speaker. By 1934, his oratory had earned him promotion to Director of Propaganda for the BUF. That same year, Joyce falsely claimed British citizenship and obtained a British passport, an act that would later become an object used to convict and execute him. Despite his effectiveness as a speaker, Joyce became a liability. His enthusiasm for street violence and his increasingly extreme anti-Semitic rhetoric embarrassed Mosley, who used anti-Semitism tactically but did not share Joyce's intensity. Joyce was divorced in 1936. He then married Margaret Cairns White in London on 13 February 1937, a union which would be troubled and fueled by opium and alcohol. Later that year, following the electoral failure, Joyce was dismissed from the BUF. He responded by forming his own group, the National Socialist League, openly aligned with Adolf Hitler. British intelligence monitored Joyce closely. In July 1939, intercepted correspondence revealed plans to travel to Germany if war broke out. In August 1939, days before Britain declared war, Joyce renewed his British passport and fled to Berlin with his wife, reportedly after being warned of imminent arrest. When the police arrived on September 1st, he was already gone. Before Joyce left Britain, there may have been another role he was playing. According to biographer Nigel Farndale, Joyce developed a relationship with a division of MI5 known as Section B5B, a unit responsible for monitoring and infiltrating extremist political groups. Farndale argues that Joyce, with his access to fascist networks, public prominence, and close ties to Ireland, may have been considered useful as an informant or at least a source of insight into extremist movements. Documents released decades later under the Freedom of Information legislation suggest contact existed, though their full extent remains unclear. What is not known is whether Joyce provided actionable intelligence or whether MI5 believed they were managing him when they were not. What is known is this. The head of MI5 at the time, Maxwell Knight, later cited as an inspiration for Ian Fleming's fictional M, appears to have warned Joyce that his arrest was imminent. Whether Joyce was a controlled informant, a tolerated asset, or simply a liability MI5 failed to contain remains unresolved. In Germany, Joyce was given exactly what he had been seeking, a platform. He became a broadcaster for Richtungsfunk, delivering English language propaganda aimed at Britain. Listeners nicknamed him Lord Haha, a reference to his accent and tone. At the height of his influence, it was estimated that up to 16 million people tuned in, sometimes out of fear, sometimes curiosity, sometimes for entertainment, humor, and sometimes for ridicule. Joyce eventually became the most important propaganda broadcaster in Germany at the time. There were rumors that he could forecast bomb targets and that he knew intimate details about target sites. In 1940, Joyce and his wife were granted German citizenship. His broadcasts increasingly reflected standard Nazi ideology, including the claim that the Jewish people were responsible for the war, a position widely used in Nazi propaganda and rejected by historians. In September 1944, he was awarded the Cross of War Merit, First Class, by Hitler for his broadcasting efforts. He also worked to recruit British prisoners of war into British free corps, and authored a propaganda book titled Twilight Over England. His anti-Semitic stance never faltered, and he continued to blame the war on what he referred to as Jewish international finance. As Germany began to lose the war, Joyce's personal life deteriorated. His marriage collapsed. His final broadcast, made on 30 April 1945, was slurred and defiant. Days later, he fled north towards Denmark. On 28 May 1945, near Flensburg, Joyce was captured by British forces. When he reached into his pocket, allegedly for identification, he was shot in the leg by a British interpreter who believed he was drawing a weapon. After treatment, Joyce was returned to Britain. Conveniently, the day before Joyce's arrival, the Treason Act of 1945 had been granted royal assent by King George VI, enabling Joyce to be charged with 3 counts of high treason. Joyce's trial raised a fundamental legal question. Could a man born in America, raised in Ireland, and naturalized as a German citizen be guilty of treason against Britain? The prosecution's case hinged on one document, Joyce's British passport, valid until July of 1940. The argument was simple. A passport grants protection. Protection implies allegiance. While the passport was valid, Joyce owed loyalty to the crown. The court accepted this reasoning narrowly. The counts against him were 1. William Joyce on 18 September 1939 and on numerous other days between 18 September 1939 and 29 May 1945 did aid and assist the enemies of the king by broadcasting to the king's subjects propaganda on behalf of the king's enemy. 2. William Joyce on 26 September 1940 did aid and comfort the king's enemies by purporting to be naturalized as a German citizen. 3. 18 September 1939 and on numerous other days between 18 September 1939 and 2 July 1940 did aid and assist the enemies of the king by broadcasting to the king's subjects propaganda on behalf of the king's enemies. Of the 3 counts of treason, Joyce was convicted on 1. The sentence was mandatory, death by hanging. All appeals failed, including one heard by the House of Lords, which rejected his case by a 3-1 majority. On 3 January 1946, William Joyce was executed at Wandsworth Prison by hanging. He was 39 years old. He was buried in an unmarked grave within the prison grounds. No one else would ever be executed for treason in Britain again. Some historians have suggested that Joyce's apparent intelligence connections may also help explain why his wife was never prosecuted. Despite having engaged in similar broadcasting activities, She was never charged and instead shipped out of Britain shortly after his execution, but was allowed to return back to the UK years later. She died in Soho, reportedly from alcohol-related illness, in 1972. On 18 August 1976, William Joyce's remains were exhumed from their site within Wandsworth Prison and returned to Ireland, where they were reinterred at the new cemetery in Bulmore, County Galway. If Joyce acted today, his case would almost certainly unfold differently. Modern Britain does not impose the death penalty, interprets treason far more narrowly, and distinguishes between speech propaganda and direct operational support. Joyce's broadcasts would likely be prosecuted, if at all, under terrorism legislation, foreign agent laws, or incitement statutes, not treason. His case sits at the edge of a question still unresolved. When does speech become an act of war? Joyce never fired a shot, but the British state decided his words constituted assistance to the enemy. In 1946, that decision cost him his life. Whether it should have, and whether it would today, is left to history and to the listener.
They continued to be deluded by Winston Churchill.
His criminal sense of irresponsibility has brought the English people and the British Empire to the edge of the precipice. One day he will have to answer to the British people and the world for his deeds. And that day is separated from the pre-war days of 1939 by a long trail of misery and blood.
Have given their lives to show that whatever else happens, Germany will live, because the people of Germany have in them the secret of life, endurance, will, and purpose. And therefore I say to you, in these last words, you may not hear from me again for a few months. I say, es lebe Deutschland! Heil Hitler, and farewell.